Good morning, Linda and Larry.
Hi, Judith.
Hi. So we're having a discussion today just in the prelude to the lead up to this mindfulness retreat that we'll be doing together in New Zealand. And
Mhm.
I wanted to let my audience know a little bit about you. Larry, I understand that you're a clinical psychologist with a PhD and a master in Qi Gong, and Linda, a registered nurse and a yoga teacher. You both have many decades of experience in teaching mindful movements, and you've also been doing the mindfulness travels for several years.
Mhm.
So perhaps we could start by just asking you to tell us a little bit about your background in the mindfulness space.
Sure.
Yes, for about 40 years, I've been a student of meditation, and about 22 years ago, I began a more serious practice of mindfulness meditation, having had the opportunity to study in the lineage of Thich Nhat Hanh. And also, when we lived in Southern California, we lived just 10 minutes from Thich Nhat Hanh, Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh's monastery,
Yeah.
which allowed us to receive teachings from him. And Linda and I also studied in the Shambhala tradition, which is perhaps most popularly recognized through the teachings of Pema Chodron here in the United States. So for the past couple of decades, we've both been working in mindfulness, and I've also been a practitioner and teacher of Qigong and Tai Chi, which has been a big part of my life for about 25 years. And I don't claim mastery because I believe that mastery is something that occurs throughout a person's lifetime.
But I will say his community does see him as mastery in his heart. So, my background in mindfulness, I would say, started in my childhood. I grew up in the countryside of the Midwest in the United States, and most of my life I was surrounded by nature. So nature was very informative to me, and it taught me the nature of my mind in terms of being present to what was happening right at that time, being surrounded by nature like that. We didn't have television. We had a very simple life. And then as a young woman, I became interested in yoga meditation through Paramahansa Yogananda's work, and studied that for many, many years. And then began to teach the actual asanas after I studied that for many years, and then slowly gravitated toward a more Buddhist meditation practice. And Larry and I have been sharing that now for over 20 years, and it has created a lot of freedom for us, and freedom in terms of the way we think, and a lot more inclusivity in the way that we deal with community and friends and family. And I think it has built certainly more understanding and compassion for us. And I think it's actually been very beneficial for our marriage, as well as working with others in retreat settings and in workshops and in our classes.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yes, we were just commenting before we started this that how wonderful
Mhm.
it is that you're both working and living in that same space of mindfulness and yoga and qigong and the whole meditation practice. And now you've been doing your mindfulness travels, taking retreats to different places around the world for, I'm not sure, how many years have you been doing that now?
Well, we've been leading retreats for about 11 years,
Hmm.
and very seriously doing more regular retreats in the past 3 years. But we've been leading retreats to Indonesia and other places in the world now for about 11 years.
That's wonderful. What are some of the
Mhm.
places that you lead your retreats to?
Well, we've been recently to northern Spain, Asturias region, which was mind blowing in terms of the vast natural resources there and the incredible peace that we all felt there. It was amazing. We've been to Sicily.
The
Um,
land of my ancestors, which
Uh-huh.
was wonderful.
it
So we
was.
have fallen deeply in love with Sicily
Mm.
and the Italian people as
Uh,
well.
and we're going back to both of those places in 2017. But we also had a retreat in Provence, France, which was magical. We've been to Bali. We have one coming up this is our 8th trip to do retreats in Bali. Costa Rica has been a large retreat with Dr. Ron Siegel the last few years, and that's going to be an annual event as well. But we're really excited about going to New Zealand and sharing our time with you at the Abel Tasman National Park.
Yes, yes, I'm very excited about that. And such a beautiful part of the world.
Yes.
Yes.
So, to what would you attribute the popularity of your mindfulness travels, the retreats?
Go ahead, Linda.
Well, I think that Larry and I are very careful in choosing the setting for our retreats. We sort of feel like the retreat backdrop or the environment that we're in is about 50% of the healing process that occurs during our retreats. So we're very nature-based. We also are very interested in cultures, different cultures from what we're used to, because we feel like when people are practicing mindfulness, and if they can drop into places that aren't so familiar to them, and feel safe and completely surrounded by beauty. And also, we're very careful about food. We really are in love with food, and we love healthy food, tasty, healthy food. And so we make sure that the retreats have what our standards are. And also, I'm particularly interested in making sure that people have very deep sleeping and dreaming during the retreats, because to practice mindfulness, it requires a certain amount of attention and intention. And the body, if it's struggling with sleeplessness or excessive tiredness, it makes it more challenging. So, we also offer yoga classes, or I teach yoga classes, and most of them are restorative classes, although they are geared for whatever level that is there. But anyone can really practice our mindful movement. Larry can tell you a little bit more about his mindful movement formal classes. We also offer continuing education units to folks in the United States. And we have several people that come outside of the United States to our retreats. And what we do for them is the professionals is we offer them a letter that they can submit to their board of certification for approval, and many times that does get approved. So that's some of the things, and I'm sure Larry can express his feelings on that too.
Well, I like to think too that we help people to connect with their mind, their body, and their heart. The heart of compassion and loving kindness, for example, in the context of mindfulness practice. The clear mind of being connected to the present moment with a state of acceptance, and also, a deeply relaxed and connected, aware body, which is my great passion. In many ways, my entry into mindfulness has been through the body, because my formal practice began as a Tai Chi practitioner, and then Qi Gong, and then in recent years, over 20 years or so, I began to integrate mindfulness into my Tai Chi practice and Qigong practice in a much more direct way. And so my intention is to share body-oriented practices as well as mind and heart-oriented practices with the general public as well as healthcare practitioners in ways that can help them in their own life, embodying mindfulness, and also to be able to assist others in incorporating mindfulness in their lives and building the bridge to understand how mindfulness can help, particularly mindfulness of the body, can help individuals feel a sense of stability, a sense of adaptability, a sense of safety and security, and also experiencing the body in a sense, dare I say, as a source of pleasure, not in a hedonistic way, but rather as a way that creates comfort. How can we create comfort within our body as opposed to reaching outside of our body, our quote self, to attain some sort of state of comfort, which is always temporary.
And I think too that the the practice helps. Of course, we know through research that it is helping to create a stronger firing brain, so to speak. The mind works better.
Yes.
It's more clear, more on track, and there are very specific ways that therapists and psychologists, that's Larry's role, not mine, can begin to integrate the skills, the mindfulness skills, with their patients in becoming more acutely aware of what's actually happening in their own body
Yes.
while they're in session. So, and then they can also share those techniques and skills with their clients to build more connection with their own sense of self.
Yes, much has been written about neuroplasticity, for example, in the context of seated mindfulness meditation practice. And now we have neuroscientists looking at the brain on Tai Chi and Qi Gong, for example, which really uplifts me to see that Catherine Kerr at Brown University here in the United States is doing work and looking at these kinds of mindful movements and how they affect the alpha rhythms of the brain, for example. And so that really excites me.
You raised such an interesting point about how we are often so uncomfortable within our own bodies that we live in 24 hours a day, that we can never escape from, that we need to learn to love and get comfort from. And we're always looking for that external source of comfort, which, as you say, is transient, because by definition, if it's external, it has to start, have a middle, and finish.
Exactly.
Whereas your own body is with you all the time, and we often are very cruel to ourselves in the way we consider ourselves, and learning that kindness and learning as you say, the comfort within ourselves. It's there. We just have to find it.
That's a very good point, too. And I'm also a lover of paradox, because this dialogue between us is begetting the question of, well, what do I do when I'm uncomfortable in my body?
Yes,
So it's not about running away from that discomfort in the body. Some people have chronic pain. I've dealt with pain in my own life as well. But how to be with that in a way that doesn't create suffering, that maybe finds a place of comfort in the place of discomfort.
Yes, and I think I'm
That's the
probably
place.
a good one to bring this to the to the retreat, having had many injuries in my life, and
Yes.
struggling with being in my own body in many ways, and learning how to be okay in the discomfort. And sometimes it's comfortable and sometimes it isn't, and that's just how it is.
Yes.
And if we don't fight it, then it's simply a part of what is. It's like the color of your hair or the shade of your eyes. It's just, this is what it is for me.
Yes.
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 Another thing I think that actually happens, which is very exciting to us and inspiring, is our retreats are for any level of activity, but we do move our body every day. We get out in nature. We take, for instance, this New Zealand trip that's coming up. There's coastal hikes that we're going to do every day, and there's just these wonderful seals to look at. There's going to be great exotic birds and native birds and plants and so on and so forth. And what we find is folks end up moving way more than they thought they could move. And I think they just feel really safe, and they also feel like they don't have to do anything unless they truly want to. But in fact, what happens is everyone ends up moving so much more than they thought. And it's really fun at the end of the retreat to talk about that, and to feel into the inner strength and the inner vitality that people get from the Qigong, that get from the yoga, that get from being outside in nature. Being outside in nature is just so incredibly healing, and that's one of our main focuses, is to just be outside. We try to teach the Qigong outside every day.
So what could someone expect from a typical day on this retreat?
Yeah, great question. So we usually get up fairly early, everything's optional, of course, but we are usually up by about 7, and we usually have a little tea or coffee, and then we go into Larry's class. And Larry will spend, why don't you tell him a little bit about your class?
75 minutes per class. And the class is usually divided into two sections. One will be sitting down, we'll be engaging in dialogue and discussion and some information sharing about mindfulness or particular aspects of mindfulness. And then we'll transition into mindful movement, where I will be facilitating Qi Gong mindful movement. And I might want to reinforce the idea here that you don't have to be an expert to do these movements. These are very simple movements. By and large, everybody has a great time with them. They're very enjoyable.
Mhm.
And my expectation is that people will be able to easily take away one or two movements that they can incorporate either into their own practice or into their practice with their clients and patients if they are practitioners.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So after Larry's class, then we usually have a nice breakfast and together, and then we will most days go on an excursion. It could be a boat excursion, it could be a coastal hike, it could be going into the villages that surround the Abel Tasman National Park. There's villages that we can take a water taxi into, um, and then generally speaking, we.
So, Linda, these excursions, they're included in the cost of the retreat?
Yes, well, there'll be hikes every day, and there'll be probably two excursions. One will be a boat, and then the other one I'm still looking at in terms of being able to sort of figure out if we can get to the hot springs. That's my goal. I don't know if that's possible, but we're going to look at that. So yeah, we always have two or three excursions included, and then daily we get outside and we hike and we are doing our mindful movement. And then, of course, they're going to have class with you as well, Judith. And that's going to be about in the afternoon, generally, when we come back from our outing. Lunch, we'll be having picnics, we'll be eating in the villages. And then dinner will be included as well. So breakfast and dinner will be included on this retreat.
Okay, great.
Mm.
And so then in the evening, what can people expect?
Well, to be honest with you, most people are quite ready to rest in the evening because we've been outside in that fresh air all day, and we've been practicing mindfulness, and we've been spending time developing what we call a sangha,
Yes.
which is just a group of folks that come together and.
Community.
I would say often in the evening, from what I've observed in our retreats around the world, people connect, and
Yeah.
connect fairly deeply at dinner, and that kind of connection tends to extend past dinner into, different uh, discussions between participants, or some folks, of course, prefer a little solitude or might want to retreat to their room. And all of that is wonderful. And we
Yeah.
fully support people taking care of themselves in their own individual ways, which happens because we tend to travel with a wonderfully mature group of people that help to create
Absolutely.
this very nurturing setting.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And one of the things that I think makes our retreats a little bit unique too is from the very first day, from the get-go, we always encourage everyone to make this one of the most special experiences they've ever had in their life. So they can craft it in their own way too. So some days it may be a more of a solitude day for that person. And they may choose to spend most of their day in quiet time or taking hikes by themselves, or all of this is okay. So I love that flexibility. I mean, that is what heals us when we have that self-care and that self-soothing, where we don't feel like we have to do what is put in front of us, but we have options.
I'm very excited about joining you on this retreat.
Yeah, we're excited too.
It is such a beautiful part of New Zealand as well, so I think we're all going to have a lot of fun and a lot of healing, and just come back totally refreshed.
Absolutely.
I'll also be putting some frequently asked questions on the website, so rather than going through them all here, people, if they want to know more, they can look at my website, mindcoachingaustralia.com.au, and have a look at the questions there. And in addition, your phone number, Linda, or your contact details will be on my website. And if people want to register for this retreat, what should they do?
Well, they should contact me via email, which which is on your website, and then I will send them a registration form. Excuse me. I'll send them a registration form, and then deposits are due by March.
Okay,
So yeah, so I'll explain all that, and I love helping people, find their way to sort of a comfort zone with traveling on their during the retreat and before and after. I give them suggestions. So yeah, it's something we love to do, and we love to share it, and we're so happy that we're doing this with you, Judith. We really are. We're very excited.
That is wonderful. Thank you very much for your time. And
Thank you.
I look forward to our next encounter and seeing you very soon in New Zealand. Thanks, Linda and Larry.
Yes, we
Very
do.
good.
Thank
you,
you.
Judith.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.